Okay, well, welcome everybody to the September meeting of the Greater Pine Island Civic Association. I'm Helen Fox, your current president. And for those of you who are not here right now, or you're elsewhere, I just want to tell you that the season almost seems to be changing. It's true, it's still hurricane season. The grass is growing like crazy, but we've got our eagle pair that seems to have come back to Alden Pines, where some of us live. And the little screech owls are just serenading us with their beautiful voices. Don't know why they're called screech owls. They have such lovely voices, and they're really into the serenading thing. And of course, the coronavirus is still making trouble in Florida, and particularly in Lee County. And in that regard, I'd like to announce that free vaccines will be offered at the Methodist Church this Friday, September 17th, from 10 a.m. to noon by the Community Cooperative Mobile Food Pantry. And anyone can get vaccination, whether they pick up food or not. They don't need to have an appointment. And of course, it's free. So if you know anybody who you could persuade to get vaccinated this Friday, it would be super. That's right down here at the Methodist Church. Publix and CVS are also giving free vaccinations. I was just at CVS today and I noticed you do have to have an appointment there, but they don't exactly have people lining up for the vaccine, so I think they'll be pretty easy to get. We've decided at the GPICA to continue to meet over Zoom probably until November. Of course, this depends on what the virus does, but we hope that by that time, the situation will be much improved. We'll get more on that tonight from Dr. Jim Copeman, who's here with his earphones. Later this evening, he'll be giving a short report from the Pine Island Pandemic Task Force. So I'd like to start with the agenda, which I'm going to put up. Agenda. Here it is. Share. Okay, can you see this?
Yes.
I hear a yep from Jim from the other room. Okay, so this is what we're going to be sharing tonight. The minutes of the last meeting, a short financial report, the rescheduling of the infamous or famous kayak launch, proposed kayak launch in St. James City. That meeting will be rescheduled for November. Then we'll get to the bylaws review, and hopefully we'll have 20 people here who can vote on whether or not all of the changes that have been suggested are okay with them. We also have an issue of what used to be anyway, illegal palmetto berry harvesting on 2020 land on our island. Noah will tell us about that. The Committee on Septic to Sewer Conversion will give you an update. There's a new committee called the Old Development Orders Committee. We'll explain that and see if anybody wants to join, anybody else who's not on the committee yet. We'll get a report, as I said, from Dr. Copeman on Pine Island Pandemic Task Force. And then a few words about, well, maybe more than a few, about how we can prepare for Randy Cerchie's presentation in October at the GPICA General Meeting. He's the director of the Lee Department of Transportation, and he's going to be talking about and hopefully getting suggestions from us about how to deal with traffic issues during season on Pine Island and Mount Lachey. And finally, announcements. So anybody have anything to add to that? Any quibble? Okay, hearing nothing, I will stop the share and go to the minutes, which are here. Okay, so this was the August meeting. These minutes have been available online. So everybody has had a chance to look them over, whether you bothered or not, that doesn't matter. I'll just give a very brief summary of each thing as we go through. The Treasury report was given and some money was brought in for membership dues. A little bit of money was put out for Mango Mania and for brochures about the GPICA. We had an update on the new Publix and the townhomes that are being constructed behind the new Publix. And the fact that we did send a letter to the Lee County manager of the community development operations, informing him about the very negative feedback that happened at the Methodist Church when we had that public information session. By negative feedback, I don't mean that that we think it's negative. We think that people voiced their opinions about it. The opinions were very much against doing what they're doing there. But it's wonderful that people are coming out and saying what they really think. We then had a couple of sessions, one from me and then one from Noel, about how real estate development happens on Pine Island and what developers can and cannot do because of the Pine Island plan, which was hammered out by our predecessors. And also he talked about, both of us talked about the problem of people wanting to talk about zoning matters directly to county commissioners. For some strange reason, there's a law against that. And you can't do that. So we explained how that happens. Then we talked about the automatic renewal of old development orders and the alarming fact that there are 13,000 properties that are already grandfathered in and can be built on right here on Pine Island. And that these properties are automatically renewed every 5 years without citizen input. And so this is why we talked about creating a task force to dig up all these old development orders so that we can more knowledgeably address the county commissioners, asking them to change the way that these things are automatically renewed. So we talked about the kayak launch site, which we'll discuss a little bit tonight. We talked about Bosilla Island. Nothing seems to be happening there right now, or was even last month, as far as we know. We gave an update on the septic conversion, septic to sewer conversion task force. The fact that we met with Randy Cerchie, director of Lee County of Transportation, and got him to say he would come out and address us. And then the fact that we have a committee to review and update the bylaws, which you will see tonight. So I'm now asking you all for acceptance of the minutes or any comments or questions or corrections. If you have something to say, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Sherry.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Nadine. All in favor of approving the minutes, you'll have to unmute yourself and just either raise your hand. I can't see you all, but.
Aye.
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 Okay, anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. So the minutes are approved. Now, we'll share the screen again. And we'll go to the financial report. And Mike, you asked me to bring it, so here it is. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, thank you. Can everybody hear me? Yes?
Yep.
Okay, great. So in the money market, there's 16,000, same as last time. Business checking is $2,961. It's dropped a little bit. And that was primarily because we spent $275 for a banner. Out of that, though, we actually got 2 banners. Thanks to Nadine, she was able to convince the first banner came without stands. So she talked to the guy and he said, well, just keep that banner and we'll send you a new one too, with stands. So she was able to get that. The CD investment is going to be the same for until it reopens again, or in October, I guess, after 6 months. So the total August money coming in was $65. That was membership dues. The money out was $275, and again, that was the banner. So that's where we're at as far as the budget goes.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Mike or comments? Just unmute yourself if you have something to say.
Move to approve.
Okay, I don't really think we need to approve, but
Oh, okay.
it's just a report. Okay, if nobody has any questions or comments, we'll stop that share.
Thank you.
And now, how are we doing, Nadine, on
Frozen.
the numbers of people?
We're good.
We're good. Fantastic. Okay. So the next thing is to just give you this announcement, which you may know about already, that the public meeting with the Conservation Foundation, these are the people who are proposing to put in this kayak launch down in St. James City across from the Flamingo Park. What is it called? The Flamingo, Nadine, your
Flamingo Bay, sorry.
Flamingo Bay, that's right, development was a cow pasture, and there have been some nice trees planted on it. And so the Conservation Foundation wants to put a kayak launch back there with quite a long boardwalk going through the mangroves in order to reach it, and some other installations such as a impervious parking lot and some other things. We did try to have a public meeting about that some months ago. And you may remember, some of you may remember that over Zoom, one of the presenters couldn't get her Zoom to work. And so they asked for, and we also asked for them to reschedule. The problem, though, was that in the meantime, their lawyers told them, well, we can't do this over Zoom anyway. It doesn't count as a public information meeting unless it's in person.
Cut your bandwidth.
So, go ahead. Somebody said something, is that Doris? No, okay. So, we decided to schedule it for Tuesday, November 9th, by which time we hope that COVID will be loosening its grip and that people will feel comfortable coming out masked. Again, to the Methodist Church, as we had the previous public information meeting. So that's Tuesday, November 9th. And so far, that's on the schedule and that's going through. We may have to cancel that at the last minute if COVID does something weird. But we really hope to be able to have it because they need to move ahead. And the only way they're going to move ahead is with an in-person meeting. And we do want to be the ones that hold that meeting. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, so the Calusa K public hearing it is going to be September 23rd. Now, Calusa K is the Publix and it's the new Publix. All right. And as we explained last time, it's a little bit complicated because this is not a public information session like we're having at the Methodist Church, unless we had previously at the Methodist Church. This is an actual session scheduled before the county hearing examiner for what they call minor amendments to the Publix development. And this is going to be held at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 23rd in the board chambers on Main Street in Fort Myers. So the amendments that they're seeking are the ones that we heard about in the public information session, which is adding a package store and locating the package store 319 feet from Pine Island Elementary School rather than 500 feet as required by law. So that's what they're asking for. Can we put in the package store, and can we do it closer to Pine Island Elementary? So as you may recall, these changes were uniformly opposed by Pine Islanders who came to the public information meeting held at the Methodist Church on June 29th. And as Noel explained, once the hearing examiner has heard the arguments pro and con, they will make a recommendation and the case will be scheduled for another public hearing before the Board of County Commissioners. That's bureaucracy for you. The catch is that if you don't appear before the hearing examiner, that's the one that's coming up, you cannot address the commissioners at the second hearing where the decision will actually be made. So we're getting a group together to appear and speak at the first public hearing and then hopefully at the second public hearing. If you're able and willing to be part of these hearings, please let us know. We need to make a good showing. The more people we have, even if you don't speak, if you just stand with the speakers, it will show that we really care about this issue. Speakers, I've never been to one of these, but according to Noel, speakers need to organize their arguments very carefully. They have to delegate which argument each participant will put forward, each one that agrees to be a speaker. We'll share rides. Everybody has to dress conservatively, you know, and look like we're the people we are. And it sounds to me like a good chance to see how county government machinery works and possibly even to get the liquor store moved to a more reasonable location. So I wanted to also tell you, I think this is really quite important. The owner of the liquor store actually called me a month ago or so to explain her position. It's a family business that's currently in the Winn-Dixie area. It's the liquor store that anybody who drinks liquor or stocks their liquor cabinet goes to. She's the one that would move to that new location in the Publix area. She stressed she didn't care where she was going to be located. She would be fine staying in the Winn-Dixie place or to go wherever on the new site. She just wants to continue to have the goodwill and the business of Pine Islanders. It was Publix, she said, that decided that the store would end up 319 feet from Pine Island Elementary. So, not to blame her, that's what she was stressing. And I suggested that she put a letter or some kind of a piece into the Eagle. I don't know whether she did that or not, explaining to Pine Islanders that this is her position. So if we go and we say, we don't want that liquor store to be so close to the elementary school, that's not what the law says. There's a reason for that. And it's perfectly easy to move it to somewhere else on that same site. And in fact, the liquor store owner doesn't care. Then I think we have more of a case. Okay, so that's the Colusa K public hearing. Any questions or comments about that? Yes, Deb. Deb, you have to unmute yourself.
Did we hear anything about the Publix and its signs?
We did not. That was not. Yeah, and maybe Noel can explain. I'm sure Noel can explain this better than I can. But that was not something that they really had to ask anybody about. Is that correct, Noel?
Yes, that's handled administratively by the staff when they review. They make a recommendation on that. One thing you need to know, though, is if you attend the meeting and you don't speak, then you can't speak to the commissioners. So it requires more than just attending the meeting. If you want
Good
to
point.
speak to the commissioners, you have to speak at the hearing as well.
Yeah. And you can bring a written thing and read it.
Yes.
I have done that in other.
And you can enter it
venues.
into the record as a one of the exhibits.
Yes, right.
It's a
No.
quasi legal proceeding.
Yeah. Mike, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if, I mean, I think that a number of people are going to be mentioning the fact that you're setting a precedent here.
Yes.
And is it okay for this, for different people to say the same thing? And then, expand on it perhaps differently? Me as a teacher talking about students versus, being that close to a liquor store. Somebody else might have some other, issues connected with it. But
I think the more people that say it, the stronger case you have.
okay, all right. And that's
Absolutely. And speaking from one's own personal experience always touches people more than just hear the facts or making an argument. I think it's great to talk from your position as a teacher, someone else's position as a parent, someone else's position as, whatever, a community member who's really invested in this.
okay.
Did you have something else to say, Mike?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
That is the 23rd at 9 a.m.
That is the 23rd at 9 a.m. in the board chambers at 2120 Main Street in Fort Myers.
Okay.
That's where it is. I unfortunately will not be here, but there will be somebody from the board who will organize driving, and you can contact any member of the board if you'd like to come along. We'd love it if non-board members would show up, would come. We just love it. It's great to get involved in this way. Then you see what the real deal is, how it works. Okay, any other questions about this, comments? All right. Well, we are now going to go on to the bylaws review, and let me give you a little bit of an intro to this. So the bylaws are reviewed every few years to make sure they're up to date. And so, sometimes there are mistakes made, or so there's different context or something. So we formed a bylaws committee, and we looked very, very carefully at each one of the bylaws that we have. We changed a lot of them. And after a lot of discussion, we finally came to agreement in the bylaws committee that all of these were what we wanted. We then took those bylaws to the board. The board discussed them, added a few things, changed a few things, minor details, and they also agreed to it. The next step is to bring it to you guys to see what you think of these bylaws and whether you want to add or change anything, or whether you're in agreement with what we've already done. So what I've done, and what I'll show you on the share screen, is that I have put up the new bylaws, not the old ones, but the new ones. And I have, I hope this shows up, I've got a column that shows each of the major changes that we made and the reasons that we made them. And I can expand on those reasons if you have questions. Yes, Mike?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Wait, electrician, sorry.
oh, he was waving to somebody. Okay. So here they are. Excuse me. Okay. So as I said, these are the major changes. The minor changes would be like punctuation or moving a part of a bylaw around to another article or section where it makes more sense, something like that, which I'm not commenting on tonight. Okay, the first change is in something you already know, and that is dues. So if you look in the left-hand column over here, you can see my arrow, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you see that dues have been increased from $10 per person per year to what you see over in the right-hand side. And that's been announced many times already. We've added the possibility of lifetime membership for individuals and couples. Okay, so I'm just going to read through these, and when we get to the end, I'll ask you if you have any serious objections that you have to this or any changes you want. So you might jot down notes as we're going through if you're going to have anything to comment on. Okay, the next one is section 3.4, member rights. So okay, so that when you would become a member, in the old days, you had to wait 60 days before you could vote on anything or make a motion, second a motion, etc. We thought that was too long. So we reduced it to 30 days, thinking that it should be reduced. There should be some kind of a waiting period, because in the unlikely case that a whole lot of people would come in who never really had much interest in being members, but wanted to push something through that would join on a particular night and then insist on their way. So I think this is kind of standard protocol for bylaws. Okay, the next is 3.6. Yeah, we removed a number of sentences here that talked about who could get access to the membership list, under what conditions they could be looking at it. All of that is covered by Florida law. And so we thought it's redundant to put it in our bylaws. The next one is 5.2. Terms of office. So when the directors or board members are elected, in the old days or now, you know, we're expected to serve a term of 2 years, but we've changed that to 3 years because it takes 2 years for people to kind of get up to speed. You know what? Somebody's got some background noise going that's pretty difficult to hear things. Nadine, are you able to mute people, or is it just me?
Sorry, Helen, it's just you.
Okay, I can't see who's. I would like it very much if Nadine you muted.
Scott, could you mute yourself? And
Is it
Noel,
me?
could you mute yourself?
Thank you.
Looks like Sam, could you please also mute yourself?
Working on it.
Okay, thank you. And then someone new is
Ryan.
connecting. I don't know who that is yet.
Okay, great. That's solved the problem, I think.
everybody.
Excuse me for interrupting, but we have a tremendous thunderstorm coming here up in Indiana.
Oh, boy.
And in case I get lost, I would vote to approve
Okay,
the bylaw changes. Thank you.
Jerry. All right, that's fine. Okay, hope you're able to stay on. Keep safe. All right. So we, as I was saying, we've changed the terms of office from 2 to 3 years for board members. And then we had to also change year 1, 3 directors would be elected, 4 in year 2 and 4 in year 3, in order to make it come out to the right number in the end. Okay, then 5.5, attendance. We've added this idea of extenuating circumstances not exceeding 6 months. So in other words, anybody could have a problem that keeps them from coming to board meetings. You know, people get sick, they need to care for family members, they have extenuating circumstances. But we decided we can't let that go on too long because then we get board members who are inactive. So we said, let's have a 6-month maximum here. People can always go off the board and then want to come back on, they need to be elected again. But 6 months seemed to us to be a pretty good grace period. Then 6.1. All right. The majority of directors shall constitute a quorum for the transition of business at any meeting of the board of directors. That's the way it was before. But then we heard from our lawyer through our former president, Scott Wilkinson, that really you have to have a minimum of 6 directors showing up, regardless of how many directors you have. So if you have 8 directors, which is what we have now, you need 6 people for a quorum rather than 5. So that's a legal thing. And we thought, well, we might as well put that in. Now on to 7.3. Okay. We wanted to add the fact that we needed to have a presence on social media, including the website. There was nothing mentioned about the website before. And I think Nadine is doing such a fabulous job on that. That website is so great. And it's always up to date. You can find anything you want on there. And it looks pretty too. And you need to have that these days for an organization to function. So we wanted to mention that the vice president, or if the vice president happens to be someone other than Nadine, who has special expertise in this area, another designated board member will take care of the website and our presence on social media. Okay, 7.5. Yes, I meant to say the treasurer here. We added several duties for the treasurer, as stated in the last sentence. It's just things that the treasurer has always done, and we thought we might as well put that in to the bylaws. Filing the annual state corporation renewal, preparing an annual financial report, recommending renewal or replacement of liability insurance for directors. Okay, and finally, no, not finally, we're almost there. Under the financial review, so this is a large change, but we've been working under these, this sort of new plan for about a year now. Instead of having a formal audit, which was what the old bylaws told us we had to have, we now have said we are although we have a significant amount of money in the bank, we have limited ins and outs of money, and really there's no need for a formal financial audit to review the books. And anyway, we couldn't ever find people to do it, so it was being let go. We weren't doing any review at all. And that didn't seem to us to be the right way to handle things. So we decided to have a 2-person committee. It's easier to find 2 people outside the board who have a financial background, who will thoroughly review the finances. And so that's how this has changed. It's now a financial review rather than a formal audit. Also, this Article 8, it now has this new title, financial review. And the article also removes all our previous standing committees. So we used to have a lot of committees: auditing committee, community and government, finance, membership, nominating, program, publicity, ways and means. Well, I think for some years, at least certainly as long as I've been president, those committees really haven't been doing much. And so it didn't seem to be realistic to continue to have those as standing committees, but rather, in order to be more flexible, to be able to, that I can appoint committees that that we actually need when we need them. And that's what we have now. We have now a septic to sewer conversion committee. We're coming up with a new committee called the Old Development Orders Committee. And of course, we had the Bylaws Review Committee. And these committees might last for a long time. For example, the septic to sewer issue might go on for years. And the same committee members may want to stay on for that long. But things like the finding these old development orders, that ought to happen within a few months and be done, and then we wouldn't need it anymore. So that's why we've removed all of these previous standing committees. And finally, the last thing is we used to have, as one of those old standing committees, a committee called Nominating Committee. We now just have an election coordinator, one person, to oversee the election of board members or directors. And so it just says what those simple duties are. And that is the end of our changes. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the beginning on here. And go back to the beginning here. So what I'd like to know, what all of us on the board would like to know, is if this is okay with the membership. And if you have specific things you'd like to comment on or disagree with or propose a change, now's the time to do that. Since I can't see everybody, oh, maybe I can. Well, it's a little hard. Maybe Nadine can see if there's anybody who wants to make a comment on this.
I don't see anybody with a hand up.
How about people who are calling in who can't get their hand up?
Let's see. Guy and Connie say they need to drop out, but they approve the bylaw changes. So that's a vote for them.
Okay.
And let me just run it down here for you.
Yeah.
Jim Koopman, up or down? Okay. Sherry already voted approval. Mike Sweeney. Linda Cutney voted yes. Thank you, Linda. Deb Memely.
Yes.
Thank you. Jill and Jim Philgott.
We vote yes.
Karen Clark, yes. Scott Wilkinson and Ophelia, yes.
Yep, Ophelia too.
Oh, great.
Noel. Okay, Deb Swisher and
John,
Don, thank you.
yes.
Okay, and then I see Maureen Livingston just joined us. Oh, I'm sorry, she wrote yes in the chat. Got it. Nancy Kraft, I don't think you're, nope, I looked you up. I don't have you on our membership. Your dues are a little outdated. So if you would like to get those in order, we'll let you vote next time. Marie and Peter aren't members. Jamie Brush.
I approve.
Okay. How about Diane Braun? I don't think I have you as a member. Sam Morse, you're a member.
Yes.
Okay. Frank Potter. Oh, you're muted, Frank. Or you can type yes or no in the chat. I'm going to move on. Don Ketterhagen, you're a member. Do you approve?
Yes.
Thank you. There's somebody with Lenovo tab 410. I'm not sure who that is. So that will be our last, assuming they're not a member. So I think that's unanimous for all the members who are at the meeting this evening.
And me too.
I'm sorry, Helen, and me as well. I didn't count
Okay.
myself, but I
Right.
approve, and I'm assuming you
All right.
approve as well.
Okay. All right, very good. Uh,
Did I miss anybody? If so, write a note in the chat. Or now that you're all back on the same screen, go ahead and hold up a hand or something. Looks like we got everybody, I think.
All right. Okay, thank you all. This has been quite a task for the people who have participated in all the revisions and the writing and all of these very long meetings. Thank you so much for that committee. That committee is now dissolved. Let's move on now to the issue of the palmetto berry harvesting on Pine Island. And so we have Noel here. Here's Noel, yeah, who is quite knowledgeable now. He's had quite a lot of conversation with the various people possibly in charge of what's been happening. And so he can tell us from the beginning, what is this issue, what's been happening, and what do we do about it, if anything?
Well, the issue was brought to my attention when some folks from St. James City drove by the Pine Island Flatwoods Preserve, and noticed that there were people out there picking saw palmetto berries. And we knew that this was a departure from the county's previous stance on palmetto berry harvesting, which, when they were asked previously, the county position was a hard no. And it was coupled with pleas to the public to please turn in any berry pickers that you saw. So we called the county, and when we called the county, we asked them about the county position, because the county put out a position paper in 2019 asking us to report this illegal activity. And so what was happening? Why was there berry picking or resource extraction occurring on our preserves on Pine Island? And I was told by several, my request kept being moved up to different people in the Parks Department. And eventually it got moved all the way up to the county manager's office. And essentially, this is a new policy, and Pine Island was chosen as a pilot project. I don't know why our preserve was singled out of all the preserves in the county to be the pilot preserve, but we also reached out to the Fish and Wildlife Commission, and they told us that harvesting saw palmetto berries was not a resource management practice, and it was very, very destructive to the plant and animal life, because the saw palmetto berries, when they fall to the ground, they reseed the saw palmettos because they're difficult to grow. And then the gopher tortoises, this is their main food. And so the county, I said, well, what did you do out there? And they said, well, we left 20% of the berries. And I said, well, how did you know that 20% of the berries was going to be enough to sustain the wildlife on the property? Were there any studies, biological studies done? How did you make the determination of 20%? And so ask them a lot of questions. We really didn't get any answers, but we have an opportunity to get some answers, because they are moving this program forward, and Pine Island will have an opportunity to comment tomorrow evening at 5:30 at 2201 2nd Street. Is that 2nd Street, Karen? 2201 2nd Street. That's the brick building across from the main administration building, and it's in room 118. And they're going to.
This is Cape Coral or
it's going to be in Fort
Myers? Fort Myers.
Right across from the where the county commissioners meet, the building right across the street. There's a big parking lot there, and you don't have to pay because they quit charging after 6 o'clock. So we need as many people as we can to show up at the meeting, because we want to listen to what their proposal is. And then after we hear what they have to say, then we have an opportunity to comment and tell them what we think about managing our preserves for resource extraction, that we don't think that that's the proper management for a preserve. And so what has happened is recently, in the last year or so, the management program for 2020 preserves has been merged with the county parks department. And the county parks department is used to managing their parks at a more intensive level. And so now they're looking at managing our preserves at a more intense level. So if we don't like the way they're doing that, then we have an opportunity to go to the meeting tomorrow night, and hopefully we can kill this program before it goes any further. Any
Who is that a
questions?
meeting of?
It's a meeting of the 2020 committee, the Conservation Committee. And so there will be two opportunities for people to speak, the public to speak. They can speak at the beginning of the meeting, and they can speak again at the end of the meeting. But I recommend that we go and we listen to their proposal. And then if we don't like what they're proposing, or we have some questions about it, then I think we need to bring our comments forward at that time, at the end of the meeting.
So Noel, who is it that will present this proposal? It's not the 2020 people, right?
It's Jesse Lavender.
And
He's
who is,
the Parks Director for Lee County.
He spoke in front of us
Yes,
about a year ago. He was in.
that's correct. And he told us at that time that he was going to work with us with our parks and preserves on the island to help us achieve our goals out here.
And what time? Noel, that was a meeting at 5:30. Is that correct?
The meeting starts at 5:30 in room 118. And then the parking is, you probably have to take a ticket when you first come in, but when you leave, the gates are all up and they don't collect any. But even if they do, you can, when you first walk in the door, the secretary there, she'll stamp the back of your card because you're going to the public meeting, but you won't have to do that.
If anybody else wants to go, I know I'm going to go with Noel.
I'm going.
Helen, I can pick you up. I know Scott, you had said that Scott might be interested in going.
He'd make a decision tomorrow, he said, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. But if there's anybody else, I mean, I could probably hold 5 people, so comfortably.
Deb has her hand up.
Deb Foley or Deb Swisher?
Deb Swisher had-
Sure.
Deb Swisher. Okay,
Yeah.
Deb, I probably wouldn't be able to drive down and pick you up, but we could probably meet it like we did the last time. Remember, you could come into get the van at Cambio Dermatology. Isn't that where we met the last time?
Yes.
That's a good spot, yeah.
We could just you could leave your car there and you could drive with us. I could drive from there. Does that sound good?
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
we need to make sure we leave the island by 4:30.
Okay, I think 4:30 is cutting it awful close, because
Okay.
If the meeting's at 5:30, you're talking about rush hour traffic,
Okay, sure. 4
so-
o'clock?
or even
4
4:15.
o'clock?
4:15 if we get out of
Okay,
here.
4:15.
That would be time to get Helen and you and Scott. And then if we're on the road at 4:15 and we meet up with Debbie, that would be great.
And my car can fit 6 people if we need it, 2, 4, 6. Yeah. So if we have more, we could take my car too with more people. So anybody wants to use
We
it.
need a big showing.
Yeah, so, yeah, I just would like to add about the palmetto berry issue. Maybe you all know this, but palmetto berries are used in the manufacture of naturopathic medicine and are very, very lucrative for people who pick them. And that's why so many people try to pick them, even though it's illegal to do it. Pick up an extra $1,000 is really going to help somebody on a very limited income. And sometimes those people are there picking, of course, they pick and they sell to middlemen. And then those middlemen sell to, it keeps going up the chain. And then finally you pay, quite a bit of money for a little pill box that is supposed to improve health for certain kinds of conditions.
Health. I think it's prostate.
It's prostate, yeah, and a lot of men are taking this.
And I think that the
So-
leader of that business is Immokalee. I think that,
Well, that's all going to be in the newspaper tomorrow morning. They have a great article in there about this issue.
Oh,
They
great.
made $15,600 and some odd dollars off picking the saw palmetto berries.
Yeah,
And also, my wife Karen is on the 2020 committee, so she would be one of the people to vote on this.
so Sam just put a notice in chat saying, no evidence that they do anything, and it goes to National Institute of Health. Yeah, whether they actually do help people with prostate problems is, that it doesn't really matter because a lot of people think they do. And
Right.
so a high price is paid for these berries. And the fact that they are, they are the major food for the gopher tortoises, which we know are protected species here. All right, did some studies and found that no different than placebos. Okay, true, but nevertheless, this is a problem. So I was talking with Cindy Bear, who gave a presentation here some months ago. She was the former director of the Randall Research Center and also wildlife specialist about this whole issue, because frankly, I was a little bit skeptical. Well, maybe they're doing a pilot project. What difference does it make? That was sort of my position at the beginning. And she was saying that, well, she gave me a lot of very good arguments that were very convincing to me about the fact that, first of all, palmettos, which are those small trees that we see on the 2020 properties and in some of the back woods areas here on Pine Island, they're very old. They're very ancient trees. Most of their trunk is underground. They take a long time to grow. And she said they can even take 100 years to reseed themselves. So in order for something to germinate, it takes 100 years. So you need to have those seeds on the property. She also said that what apparently this pilot project did was to dump a whole lot of palmetto berries in one place. And then, now how did that work? They dumped a lot of the palmetto berries in order to keep the 20%, I guess, on the land. And she thought that is not the natural way, that the wildlife are, first of all, the wildlife are not going to be able to access them well that way. And secondly, they're not going to be able to germinate well that way. So that was not an acceptable way for the property to be managed. Furthermore, this is supposed to be a preserve. The Flatwoods Preserve is a preserve, and that's different from a conservation sort of place where things are conserved, where people can go and there are a lot of trails and there are a lot of other things that are built up there. This is the preserve, so the idea is to preserve it in its original state. And it's a little bit hard to have a project of people harvesting the berries, in under such circumstances. Finally, there's a question of who gets the money from this? Is it the county that is making the money when they sell these berries to the company, apparently in Immokalee,
50-50.
that buys them? And then is that a way that, the county was saying they have trouble getting enough people to police these areas, to find these, individuals who will go in there and try to harvest some berries to make a little money for themselves. So they thought, well, if we put a legal project, then we will have gathered so many of the palmetto berries that these other people will not be able to come in. I think that's their thinking. They will not be able to come in and harvest them. And that way we don't have to spend our money or find more people to come and police these properties. So it's kind of a complicated but interesting issue of wildlife management.
Should I butt in for a second, Helen?
Absolutely.
I've had, thanks to Noel, privy to a little bit of the information that's been going back and forth. And we filed a information request with the county last night, looking for all the documents related to this. Because basically they've stonewalled us. Noel's been the point man, and they have emails they've hidden. They haven't released the program, any input. Frankly, I find these palmetto berries to be somewhere up there with rhinoceros horns. A lot of people believe they're going to make it better, but there's no research on it, and they'll exterminate the whole species if you let them do it. This program, I don't remember if Noel mentioned this, but he told me, they allow these harvesters to take a no-bid contract, apparently. We haven't been able to find out if there was a bid, and harvest 80% of the berries. Now, they're going to leave 20%. I don't know where they came up with that. Do you know?
They could not justify it at all.
No, and there's nobody policing them to see if they left 20% of the berries. And they take 50% of the profit, and the county gets 50% of the profit, but nobody's counting the berries except the harvesters. So we don't know if they're stealing from us. And for them to say that they're going to do this because they don't have enough enforcement to stop people from stealing berries is ridiculous. I mean, imagine if Fish and Wildlife said, well, we don't have enough people to make sure that people aren't poaching fish. So we're just going to let these commercial guys harvest 80% of the fish, and we'll get half the money, and we'll call it a day. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. There's no reason that this program should go on, and they did it in the dark. They hid this from the county. We'd have been outraged if we knew they were going to do this on Flatwoods. And here's the other thing about Flatwoods. We know they have an arsenic problem out there.
Yeah.
Do they tell everybody, oh, these berries are harvested in an area that we know has arsenic contamination? I mean, I wouldn't eat those berries. Really, you know? So why did they pick Flatwoods? Because I thought, in my opinion, two reasons. There's a lot of these palmetto berries out there. You can see them growing when you drive down Stringfellow Road, if you know what Flatwoods is. And second, they didn't think anybody would be looking. They didn't think they'd get caught. That's why they did it. And I hope I can go tomorrow. I got some issues here. I would really urge everybody to go there and express the disgust that I have with this. Not only this is a power grab. 2020 would never have let this happen if they had the authority they had about a year and a half ago. That was taken away from them by the county manager, in my opinion, who was consolidating his power. There's no reason Parks and Recreation, who have no experience in running wildlife or game preserve lands, they should not have this. 2020 is composed of people who have expertise in management of preserves and care about these preserves. They don't get paid. You know, you look at what these people at Parks and Recs are getting at the top of the pay scale, it's over $100,000 a year. You know, and so now they're trying to make a profit apparently to justify their existence. I don't understand it. I really don't. I think it's disgusting, and I hope you all get a chance to go tomorrow.
Well, that's one question I have for the group that's attending the meeting is I'd like to know if the money that they made is going to come back in any way, shape, or form to Pine Island.
I think
Well,
it's
it'd be
just a
interesting to see what they
misguided,
say. Yeah.
like,
Jamie,
I think the only one that it'll benefit would possibly be, the city or perhaps Mr. Lavender directly. But I don't think Pine Island's going to see any of that.
interesting.
I think it's irrelevant who's profiting. It shouldn't be happening in the first place.
Mhm.
And to do that is raping our preserves. I'm just disgusted, and I wish I could be there.
These berries actually are very, very good at countering cancer. I can remember, not enough to say anything smart on them, but just remembering some properties about them. They are like the future for completely wiping out cancer.
Okay, so that's a controversial point, as Sam has pointed out. but nevertheless, these berries are considered very valuable. And that is, that and the money behind them is the reason, apparently, for all of this secrecy and kind of power grab, as Scott was mentioning. All right, so we do invite anybody who wants to come along to contact me or to contact Nadine, or put your name in the chat. The strange market of Florida's palmetto berries. Okay, we have something in the Guardian. Oh, I would love to read that. So thank you for that. Thanks for people for participating in this and hearing us. All right, if we have no more comments on this issue, let's move on to the Nadine, would you have an update on the septic to sewer conversion committee? Just remind people what you're doing and where we are with it.
Sure, I'm gonna share my screen so I can show a short PowerPoint.
Okay, great.
Yes, quick second here. Okay, we created a septic to sewer conversion task force. Obviously, we all know there are water quality issues surrounding Pine Island. We also know that the reasons for these problems are many and varied, and a lot of them are beyond our control. They require political solutions at the county, at the state, and at the federal levels. But we wanted to look and see what were the things that we might be able to help with or to control that, that we could work toward addressing some of the water quality issues we've got. And so we created a septic to sewer conversion task force with the main idea really is to lobby the county to look at the septic issue out here on the island and to support funding for studies and to help us improve water quality. We really want the county to handle or to take the lead on funding a study. And then again, if it is found to be beneficial and doable for us here on the island, to financially to support that. We had a number of committee members who played different roles. As you can see, Noel, Mike Sweeney, Claudia, Jeff, Sue, Scott, Helen, and I, did various and sundry things, looking for information and gathering background information. One of the things we did earlier this year was take a tour of the Pine Island wastewater treatment plant that we've got down in St. James City. We had several goals early on. We wanted to find out what our current usage and capacity is at the septic plant. We wanted to find out what the history of package plants are on the island. And we wanted to see what information already existed about water quality indicators in Pine Island Sound and Matlacha Pass and some of the waters surrounding the island. One of the kind of shocking things to me was that we have 4,500 to 5,000 septic tanks on the island today. Not so shocking. Obviously, we know that most people on the island have septic, but if we think about how many people that is and how many of the septic tanks are perhaps old and outdated, it becomes quite a concern. At the sewage treatment plant, we looked at current capacity. The plant serves more than 2,000 customers. Eventually, we'll serve more than 3,000 by 2040. Today, we've got 808 connections, and that's 90% residential. Most of those connections are from Matlacha, and I think they've got some portions of Cherry Estates that are hooked up to the treatment plant. You can see our current capacity is 130,000 gallons a day, but they're permitted up to 500,000 gallons. That's a lot of room for expansion. The treated water that they currently have is disposed of using the deep injection well that they jointly own with Pine Island Water. And the well is permitted to receive many more gallons per day than they are currently using. So again, that indicates that we've got excess capacity. Package plans, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but these are essentially where a number of houses in a community have a small treatment facility where their wastewater goes. And so if you think of some of the neighborhoods on the island, that's what those package plants are. We've only got 11. About a third of them have received some kind of citation or warning letter. However, most of these warnings or citations were really for minor signage infractions and, a few warning light infractions. They weren't major at all. So we're not seeing lots of spills on the island. And Mike, feel free to chime in if I'm misstating that.
No, that's completely correct. Yes.
Thank you. And water quality. Sue Dehu took the lead on looking at some of the water quality parameters that are available. And I'll post this on our website later, but she pulled up numbers for nutrient loads and fecal coliform and phosphorus and mercury, and just looked at what our numbers were showing. But the Charlotte Harbor National Estuary Partnership and South Florida Water Management District have already stated that water quality in Pine Island Sound and Malachey is showing excess levels of these contaminants. Interestingly, a 2017 estuaries report card from the Conservancy of Southwest Florida gives us a D on our water quality. And you can see here in the slide, it's 95% of the watershed is impaired for at least one parameter. And this is a 2017 report. We're here in 2021, and we know that nothing has been done to address the issue or to improve water quality. So, I don't think it's a leap to say that it's only gotten worse. So with all this information, we put it together in a letter and sent it to the director of Lee County Utilities, which is Pamela Keys, and we copied it to all of our county commissioners. And we requested that we receive priority consideration as Lee County undertakes a $700,000 wastewater management plan. The county approved the development of this plan back in June, and Pam Keys is heading up overseeing the contract to get that plan created. So what we asked is that we receive top consideration as they're writing this plan. For instance, we don't think they should start with Lehigh Acres. We think they should start looking here at the issues we're facing. And we also requested that Lee County sponsor a septic to sewer study for Greater Pine Island. This is something they just recently did with Captiva. The residents there requested that the county support a study of septic to sewer conversion that would eventually lead the properties on Captiva to hook up to the Sanibel sewer treatment plant. And so the county did fund, I believe it was $100,000 study. I want to say it was last year. I don't have the date off the top of my head, but they funded the study and that is working and moving forward. So we're kind of following in their footsteps and following the actions that they took to try and get the county to address this issue. Pam Keys, director of Lee County Utilities, we've also requested that she be the main speaker at our December meeting. And she's agreed to do that. And we're hoping she'll come in and update us on what the Lee County plan is in terms of this waste management plan and address, some of the issues that we've brought up in our letter to her. Again, I'll post the full letter on our website and you can take a look at it. And then we would ask if you attend our December meeting, certainly come with your questions and concerns about septic to sewer conversion. So I think that's about it on my end. And I'm going to stop my share and say, if anybody's got any questions, feel free to hold up your hand.
Jim,
Jim.
go ahead. Yeah.
I think one of the issues that is interesting is the deep injection well. And I don't know if people are aware, but the Supreme Court recently upheld the Federal Clean Water Act as saying you could not put contaminants down a deep injection well if those contaminants can be detected in public waters. And I suspect that that would be the case for much of Florida. So that's an issue that nobody's considering too much at the moment. But I think with that recent case, I think it's a serious issue. And I think that the solution is not just a conversion from septic to sewer, but have the sewer deal with have tertiary treatment. That's really becoming more the standard across the country. It's a bit expensive, but for our environment, it's something that we can do. Much of the nation already gets tertiary treatment.
Thanks, Jim. And we did put a line in the letter to Pam mentioning that we weren't convinced that deep water injection well was the way to deal with the wastewater, but given that that's how it currently is, so we did point out that to her.
Yeah, and we should mention it when she comes. And see
Yeah,
what she thinks
absolutely.
about that. Yeah. So there's a question in the chat, where's the money, not just county, state, fed? Where do you mean, where is the money going to come from to do such a conversion? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, it is. Sorry.
Yeah, right. No,
I would tend to agree.
Yeah.
We would urge our lawmakers to support such infrastructure improvements at the state and federal level as well. I mean, I don't think there's any question that septic to sewer conversion is very expensive. And at some point, I would imagine if we followed the path Captiva did, Captiva residents had to vote to approve the conversion. So nothing happened or nothing would have changed if the residents weren't supportive of it. And I think there are absolutely going to be a lot of issues we have to look at, financial being one of the main considerations.
Nadine?
Yes, Frank.
Frank, I would suggest, did you send a copy of that letter over to the Water Authority?
Oh, you know what? I did not. That's a good suggestion.
Yeah, because they may provide some input on some of the issues related to the deep injection well.
And Jim Koopman, who you heard from a few minutes earlier, he is a member of the water board. So, I bet he's been putting that bug in their ear, but I don't want to speak for him.
I'm on the board also.
Oh, okay. Well, great. Well, maybe you guys could both take the letter and share it with the board. I can look up your email. I probably have it in my membership list, and I will send the letter to you.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks.
I just like to say that Lori Adams, who oversees the water board issues, the services, she was very helpful in providing all the information that got communicated to the committee.
Just if I could interject a little bit, I was pretty familiar with the wastewater treatment plant because of the arsenic that was sprayed on Flatwoods, which turned up in a monitoring well. That's my opinion. They disagree. But that sewer system only tests the water that they're releasing after treatment once a year. Once a year. I talked to a friend of mine up in Bedford, New Hampshire, and they have a big water treatment plant up there, probably tertiary. It runs out of Manchester, New Hampshire. They test that water every hour. If somebody dumps something down a sewer, which may very well have been the reason for the arsenic contamination that we experienced on Flatwoods, they know right away, and they can chase it back. They can go from sewer to sewer and sewer, test it, and find out where it's coming from and put a stop to it. If they don't get them the first time, they'll get them the second time. They don't do that down here. Once a year, they test that effluent, and that's a big problem. But Jim, I hear what you're saying. There's only 3 ways to get rid of that water. You know, you can spray it, which hasn't been working out well for us. You can inject it into the ground, or you can dump it into a river.
Jim, you're muted.
I just want to say, dump it in the river after tertiary treatment.
Right. But we don't have really much current there, so it just kind of sits, you know. And I don't know, maybe it'll work. I don't know. They could pump it way out in the ocean, but you got to go 30 miles before you get any depth.
But after tertiary treatment, then it's presumably clean. If you do tertiary treatment.
Right. I agree. It should be tertiary treatment. But okay, but strategically, is that the fight we want to fight? Do we want to spend all the money on tertiary treatment and take it away from possibly having these sewer lines expanded? I don't know. I mean, maybe we should talk about this. You know? I don't have.
Yeah. So we're in the information gathering stage right now.
I think we're in the early stages of anything, and I think there are plenty of questions about everything that we're going to have to address. I
think that we'll be inviting Pam Keys and we can ask her some of these questions. She has a much better handle on this and a much bigger vision of what's going on in the county than we do. Yeah. So, you know, I'm sure she'll be able to give us some guidance.
Well, one of the things we have to stress when we're meeting with Pam is that there's about $100 million a year that the state is putting into this program, and you have to have a sponsor. So we need Lee County to step up and be our sponsor. And we need to drive that point home to her that the county can't just sit back and not take any action here. If they're going to get any money, they need to get out front with a grant request from the state, because everybody and his brother is going to be asking for that money.
I think that the fact that we're an island gives us a little bit of an advantage. I mean, I think you were mentioning Lehigh Acres versus Pine Island. We have all this concern with water quality as it is because of Lake Okeechobee releases, red tides, blue-green algae, and then we're adding to that with, you know, occasional or frequent, you know, breakages in sewer systems, especially during this rainy season, you know, where things get overflowed. And I think that's a legitimate thing to say, you know, hey, you know, if one of the big attractions in Florida is water, and that's what people come down here. They come down to fish, to go to the beaches, to go swimming. You know, I think focusing on an area where water is leaking, you know, unsafe water is leaking into the sound or into the Gulf is an issue that you should address before you start working your way back into the interior.
Okay, so I got a message from
one last thing, if you don't mind, on that last commentary. I was just gonna say that, you know, Pine Island is also growing so much that it just seems like the right evolution process to try to get on board with this. Like Noel said, when the money is here, we can get in front of it, and we can, you know, if it's a development kind of atmosphere that they like, you can almost kind of pitch it as that. It's that, you know, we're growing and we're just gonna need the infrastructure to support, you know, a growing population.
I understood from someone that Linda Cutney might have a comment. Linda, if you're there, just unmute yourself. Yeah, hi, Linda.
Yeah, this was discussed about a year ago with the board, and I think what they said was that because there was such a collection of impervious rock between the injected sewage and what was taken from water, that there was no way that it would travel from one portion of the ground to the rest. As to the arsenic in the flatlands, I'm not too sure about that. What really caused that, but it sounds like it was probably dumped there by somebody, perhaps by the sewage treatment plant, but that was my guess.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm on the board too.
Are there any other comments on this issue? Okay, we'll be talking about this from month to month, I'm sure. And we will continue to move forward with our committee work. So now the Old Development Orders Committee, which is a new committee that we've just appointed. I've just appointed Deb Swisher Hicks is heading that committee. And can you tell us what you're doing and what needs to happen? Remember, this is about finding out about where these old development orders are and why there is this process of automatic renewal of these old orders without any citizen input. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so can everybody see
Yeah.
what I brought up?
Yeah.
My first time, so, okay.
Good.
So it's a real quick, I'm hoping to find some volunteers to help me scour all the different properties along Pine Island. Just to, we spoke earlier, there's like 13,000 different pieces of property along Pine Island that may have older developmental orders that could just spring up to us, kind of like what happened with Calusa Clay and the townhouses that are going up over there. There's 40.5 square miles ish on to go over, but it may sound very big and daunting, but it could be actually a relatively quick. Everybody can do it from their own homes. You don't have to go to any place. You just have to have internet and a computer and a mouse to go clicky, and that's about it. I'm going to run through just a really quick way of how to do it. It's the Maps Hub, the Lee County Maps Hub. You would go on their main page and you'd scroll down until you saw Find My Property. And when you click on Find My Property, it comes up, with a big map of Lee County. And you just, you zoom in onto the area that you want to look at. And if I can get enough people, we could section out the whole island to make it a lot easier. And for example, I thought I'd bring up our Calusa Clay, which is
it's K, C-A-Y, yeah.
K, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Which I don't know if you can see it depending on where you have your people on your screen. But of course you could see Pine Island Elementary School.
Yeah.
So what you do is you literally go over there and you click on the areas. You'll have each property is going to be a little bit different, and I can teach, fine tune it with everybody. And as you can see, there's 4 little pages that you would skip through, and you can find the old DO, which is the developmental order that we're looking for. We're looking for anything that was before 1989 and before. That's our target. And sometimes there's more than one developmental order for an area, and there's a lot of little stuff, but that's the big one. We need to find those developmental orders. I just brought up a real quick second sample of one that has to do with Tranquility Bay, and the developmental orders on those are like in 2000. So those would not be the targeted ones that we're looking for at this point. And they actually have 2 on that property. It's one in 2000, one in 2006. See, pretty simple. Yeah, it's just, it's more time consuming just to sit in your chair and do this than it is actually to do it. And that's why I'm hoping we can get a collection of people together to zip through the area real quick. Any questions?
So Karen Clark has a hand up there.
Yeah, we'll do it. My husband and I would be happy to help.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So
So Deb, can people email you? Should I put your email address in the chat box here?
Yes, it's on the, should still be on the screen, which I can unshare, but yes, please feel free to write that down. My phone number's on there. Leave me a message and I'll call you back. And then my email.
I'm sorry, I don't know if I can interrupt. Once we get the development order, what do you do with that?
One of the things that I'll be doing is looking at it to see if it's still active, how active. I've got Noel's going to hopefully help me figure out what to do from there. Hopefully we'll be able to identify them all and bring them to our county commissioners to have them sunsetted, or however they call it in Florida, to shut them off basically, so they can't be rejuvenated later, and we're surprised we're going to have 480 townhouses into a smaller area than we expected, because the things have changed over the years on how many items can be built on a piece of property.
Well, see, what we're concerned about is we're concerned that these things just get automatically renewed at the county level. And so something that could have been approved back in the 1980s had different traffic study done, a different density study that was done, different infrastructural study was done. So all these studies were done and they're all outdated. And so what happens is the county doesn't review any of that. And I think our ultimate goal would be to, once we identify the number of these and what kind of density, increased density of the island we're talking about.
Test, right, Clark?
We sit down with the county commissioners and we say to the county commissioners,
just asked.
we want you to have a policy to where we have a public hearing, and these old development orders have to come up to current day standards before you renew them. Yes. And so we need something to change the way it's being handled currently.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions? I'm not seeing any. Nadine, if you see any, let me know. But I think we're good.
If
Okay.
I told her I'd help with that.
Yes.
Sherry will also help. Okay, great. And I think Deb also has one or two people already on the committee. So that'll bring your committee up to about 5 people, which I think was your goal. Yes. So thank you very much. And we'll look forward to an update on that next time. Now, on to the Pine Island Pandemic Task Force. Dr. Jim Coleman, can you give us a little understanding of what's going on in Lee County, on Pine Island in Florida, however you want to say?
Well, first of all, just a little history of the Pine Island Pandemic Task Force. It was a group, an informal group organized by a number of nurses who were facing difficulty getting personal protective equipment early on in the epidemic. And so they started making their own personal protective equipment. This is a completely volunteer organization with no budget, no structure. It's just citizens trying to help out as much as they can. It's not, there's no supervisory body to this. This is just a place where people get together and try to discuss the problems and try to discuss what we can do to ease the situation. Now, early on, the emphasis was on flattening the curve, and you know that Lee County at first had a pretty flat curve, whereas some other places like New York City did not have a flat curve. But as time went on, the different activities that were involved in reducing the risk and the threat became active points. I came on the committee because I have a background of working as an epidemiologist. I have investigated the SARS coronavirus epidemic in Beijing. I went to Beijing for that. And I have developed a lot of modeling theory. I continue to develop and publish, recently published an article on how the variants are arising. But that's not the kind of thing that this committee addresses. Eric McRae was the first convener of this, and he did a wonderful job of organizing people to volunteer and get various activities undertaken. When Eric left, Eric was the pastor at the Methodist Church, and he has been replaced now by, and we're very happy to have Kaylee Biga, who was replaced him also on the committee. But I took the role of convener, but that's all. It's just the role of convener, because most of the kind of activities have to do with getting the community response. And I might be good at the science, but I'm not so good at the community response issues. And heaven knows that there's very difficult issues these days. But so like the kind of activities that have been involved recently, the emphasis has been on improving the vaccination rates and getting more people vaccinated. That is the key way we can do things now. The reason we're having this big peak right now, there are two reasons for having this big peak that's overwhelming the emergency services throughout the county, even though that peak seems to be coming down a little bit right now. And the two things are the Delta variant and the fact that most everyone in Lee County thinks the problem is over and wants the problem to be over. God knows I want the problem to be over. I don't want to be holed up, in my house anymore. I want to get out and do things. And unfortunately, when we do that, the infection rate is going up. When I first got into this, studying this pandemic, I did not believe how important the small aerosol airborne transmission would be. I did not believe that we would have this huge difference between indoor and outdoor air transmission risks. And I did not believe that the mask would be anywhere near as effective as the masks are. But fortunately, there's been a lot of very good epidemiology being done all around the world on this. And good hard scientific evidence has completely changed my ideas and attitudes about this. That indeed, the indoor mask wearing is a very crucial issue in reducing transmission. But the big tool that we have now is the vaccine. And even though the vaccine will not completely prevent the Delta variant from infecting somebody. It's quite effective in keeping them out of the intensive care units and out of the morgue. So the Pine Island Pandemic Task Force has just tried to be as apolitical as possible and tried to just look at those things where community action could make a difference. Helen mentioned at the start of the meeting about the vaccination at the Methodist Church that's coming up on Friday. And, you know, so the committee got organized and took a number of actions to try to advertise that and to try to increase the number of people that might be coming. That's the kind of thing that the committee does. I really, you know, like to thank Paulette because Paulette really echoes what the committee does and says, and gets the word out in a wider sense. So you know, we are regularly now meeting about between 6 and 9 people. We have 14 members all in all. You know, that have been on the committee, but several of them are not attending so much anymore. If anybody has an interest, we should help. Now, I think that these final stages should be managed well. You know, but the trouble is we can't manage them. Everybody has their own ideas, and not so open to changing those ideas. But if we could get the vaccination rates up, we could prevent the evolution of further variants that are going to be even more difficult to contain and that are going to require significant changes in the vaccine. And my own research is how do we do those kind of studies to decide what changes are needed in the vaccine. But we could tremendously reduce the need for those for further changes if we could get enough people vaccinated with the vaccines that we currently have. But that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Jim. Does anybody have questions or comments? Mike.
Yes, just a quick question about the booster shot. I mean, what's your feeling on that? Do we need to be looking to move into getting booster shots? I mean, in the near future?
Well, of course, you're aware that the controversy about this now is that as we move into the booster shots, first of all, the people who have immunosuppressive therapy of any sort definitely need a booster shot now. Okay. The question is for other people.
Yeah.
And it's been extremely disappointing how the vaccines have not become available to the poorer countries as were originally planned. And so the World Health Organization is trying to make a strong statement that instead of getting the boosters for people now, that you will be better protected if we keep the virus from evolving as the Delta variant evolved than by getting a booster. But it's true, you're going to need a booster sometime. And the question is whether you're going to need a booster that is, you know, adjusted to the latest strain. I know for my own self, I do have the feeling that, you know, 8 to 12 months, you're probably going to have some good protection, but beyond that, you're not going to have much protection.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So that's 8 to 12 months from your second shot, right, Jim?
Yeah, from your second shot, right?
Except for the immunocompromised people who are eligible right now. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes, and they need them because the second booster doesn't work as well in them, and the third booster has been shown to have a better effect. And so you practically need to, some of those people you just need to keep boosting and boosting.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, so the last thing I have here on our agenda is the LEDOT presentation in October. So as I told you before, the director of the Lee Department of Transportation will be here, and he's going to be talking with us about ideas for traffic mitigation during season on Pine Island and Matlacha. This is a tough question. You know, when we met with him in Fort Myers, a lot of ideas were kind of thrown around, but my own impression was that Director Cerchie did not really have a good feel for what Pine Island traffic is really like, and what are reasonable opportunities or possibilities for mitigating that. And so I'm hoping that you all can give it some thought between now and next month, and come with ideas and suggestions. Things have been thrown out there, like a traffic circle at the four-way stop, you know, for example, and it's been shown, and I think he will try to convince us that if you put a traffic circle there, people are going to get through that intersection faster. But the real bottleneck is in Matlacha itself.
Right.
You know, it's not at the four-way. It happens at the four-way because Matlacha is packed up. So if we think about how are we, you know, and it's a tough thing because there's one road in and out of the island. Matlacha is a historic district. You can't really widen the road, you know, so what do you do? And I think also that some people in Matlacha, and maybe even Director Cerchie himself, has the idea that the development on Pine Island will be self-limiting by the traffic. And this was such an unusual idea to me. I couldn't figure out why they think that, but I've heard this several times now. They're saying that, as I understand it, that when people are thinking about buying on Pine Island, they're going to look at the traffic and season and say, oh no, that's too much for me. I'm not going to even buy on Pine Island. So therefore, we will not have that much development. So therefore, we will not have a worse traffic problem as the years go on. And this just is not, in my view, it's not a realistic way to be thinking. So we all need to get our best creative minds to come up with some ideas that we can discuss with him when he comes. Any questions or comments? Okay, so any announcements or anything that anybody wants to say before we get a motion to adjourn? Okay, so I would love to hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank
Sherry?
you, Sherry. A second?
I
Mike?
second.
Or Linda seconds. Thank you, Linda. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. The meeting then is adjourned. Thank you all very, very much.